When we're training, it's really important to match our execution of each and every rep and all the other acute exercise variables with the goal that we're looking to achieve. All the different goals in training have slightly different training approaches that you need to take to get the best possible results. So if we can orientate our approach to each exercise with the training outcome that we're after, we're obviously going to get a lot better results. In this video, I want to talk about some strategies that we can use to do that. The first one is when we're looking at hypertrophy training. So hypertrophy training is the process of building muscle. It makes up the main part of obviously bodybuilding type training and also fat loss training as well, because we're looking at fat loss training. The main thing we're looking at doing is creating a calorie deficit for our nutrition and using weight training to maintain or hopefully gain just a little bit of muscle mass so we undergo a proper body transformation. So there's a few key things that we want to apply to our training when we're in the gym to get the best outcomes for hypertrophy. The first one is being aware of the target muscle group that you're trying to stimulate on that particular exercise, taking it through the greatest range of motion possible, and having sensation and awareness of that muscle group. So this is a really important concept to get, because when we're looking at strength training or athletic development training, we're looking at just moving the load as fast as we can. We're looking at lifting up as heavy weight as you can. When hypertrophy, we're looking to direct the majority of the stimulus onto a certain muscle group, and we really need to standardize the exercise execution so we can track our volume, which is the amount of work we do, in the most accurate way possible. So when we're training an exercise, let's just say a leg press, for example, the first thing we want to do is work out the target muscle pretty quickly. We're going to figure out it's the quadriceps, front of the thighs, big muscles there. What we want to do from there is then identify the range of motion that we want to take it through. And for hypertrophy-based training, we want to take every muscle through the greatest range of motion we possibly can. Active range of motion is another concept that we'll do for muscles like lats, but to keep the discussion simple, we want to take the muscle through the greatest range of motion possible. So for hypertrophy training, things like half reps, quarter reps, and changing each movement isn't really going to give the best outcome. It's not going to stimulate all the muscle fibers throughout each and every rep. We need to be consistent. So once we've worked out the target muscle, the range of motion, which is as big as possible, as safe as possible, from there we want to look at maximizing sensation in the muscle. So the whole idea of lowering down under control, so say we're lowering the weight, 1, 2, filling the bicep, contract at the bottom, contract the bicep to lift up the weight. So you might want to do a little bit slower concentric on some lifts, which is the lifting portion, but you want to feel the target muscle burning, hurting during that particular exercise. As long as it's going through a great range of motion, then you know it's a good exercise for hypertrophy. This is where things like booty bands and stuff like that, sure, I'll give you a little bit of muscle gain. You'll get a ton of sensation, but sensation isn't necessarily equated with muscle growth because the range of motion of the exercise is so small and the potential for overload is so small. Whereas something like a leg press, for example, huge, or pendulum squat, huge range of motion of the quadricep muscle. You can take it through all the range it can possibly handle. Great loading capacity. Is a fantastic exercise for building muscle. So for hypertrophy, just to go over that again, it's identifying the target muscle, greatest range of motion possible, stimulation, can you feel it working, and then potential for overload. That's how we work out hypertrophy training. For strength training, it's a little bit different. We need to look at the context of how we're doing our strength training. If we're looking to express our strength in something like powerlifting, squat, bench, deadlift, we want to work out how we can move the load over the smallest range possible, because we're only judged on how far we can lift. So the bench press, it's arching. For a squat, it could be a back box squat. For a deadlift, it's a sumo stance. We will do that. We want to create as much tension in the body as possible. So we really want to get every muscle involved. We're not trying to hypertrophy any particular tissue. We're just trying to lift a damn load. So we may as well use everything we got. Use every damn muscle that we got to do it, and then lift the weight with as much explosive intent as possible. So when we're looking at maximal strength, even if we're lifting 200 kilos off the ground in a deadlift, and that's our maximum, we're still trying to push the ground away as fast as possible. For strength, what we want to do is really take advantage of the rate of force development, which is how fast our muscles can build force, and we want to do that as fast as we can so we can activate all our fast twitch motor units, which are our strongest fibers, and we want to apply as much force into the ground as possible. For a bench press, we're trying to rip the bar apart, push it off our chest as fast as we can. For a squat, we're trying to explode out the hole as best we can. So for strength-based training, we really need to really focus on getting that tension throughout the whole body and their explosive contractions. When we're looking at conditioning, so cardiovascular type work or using like circuits in a fat loss type format, what we really want to focus on training wise is duration of effort. So if we're doing like 60 seconds on, 30 seconds off, or 60 on, 60 off, we want to make sure that we're using the right effort accordingly for each part of that workout. So if we're doing high intensity intervals, it's high as we can go for 60 seconds. We don't care if our speed slows down because we're not looking at that. We're looking at maintaining that target heart rate. In the rest periods, they're probably going to be, or the easy periods, your effort's probably going to be lower. It's not trying to push through the whole time. So for conditioning type work, you need to be aware of the stimulus that you want to get out of each and every set, and then do that as hard as you can or as soft as it requires. For athletic performance, it's a little bit different. You will be some exercises, you'll be looking at creating tension for say rehab type exercises where you want to hypertrophy certain muscles to protect you for your sport. So say for some people who play contact sports, you definitely want to get hypertrophy in the chest, in the quads, the hamstrings, and the back because you want to have a little bit of armor and they protect you from getting hit. You want to work on rate of force development, so you really want to get as much tension into the bar as possible when you lift the heavy weights. And then you also want to get as snappy and rhythmic movement as possible. So for athletic development, it really depends on the exercise that and what you're trying to achieve from each exercise because there's so many different demands there that your execution will need to change for each different exercise. So guys, that's how we apply different training models for different training approaches for different training models. Hopefully this will help enhance your training. Any questions, hit me up and I'll speak to you all soon.